I went to Michigan, and I was just going to get a master's in Spanish because one of our sisters who was teaching in the Spanish department here was failing in health, and so I was supposed to take her place with a master's. So I got that all finished. And I got a phone call just before I was ready to come back home, and Sister Henrietta said, "We'd like you to stay on and get a doctorate." Well, at first I was disappointed because I thought, oh, I would have studied so differently, you know. At least I think I would have. I don't know. But anyway, so then I started what was some wonderful, wonderful years in the Spanish language and literature department in Michigan. They had one of the best modern language departments in the United States, I guess. So that's why I was there. It was in 1968, I think, yes, that I had gone to Spain to do some research on the dissertation I was going to be working at. And I came back, and I was living with a little Puerto Rican lady out in one of the suburbs of Ann Arbor. And we were invited to a block party. And I said, she asked if I'd like to go, and I said, oh, sure, I'd like to go, because I knew no one there. So we went to this block party, and after a little while, a rather tall Lebanese man, who was the chair of the engineering department, came over to me and simply said, "My wife would like to meet you." I said, "Oh, I'd love that." And so as soon as I finished eating, then I went over to her. And she was from the United Christian Reformed Church, I think. And I still had my veil on. And so I said to her, "Hello," and she said, "Do you know what's happening in the Catholic Church?" That was her first sentence to me. And I said, "Well, I think so, but do you have something special that you want to tell me about?" And she said, "Yes. The most important thing that's happening in the church right now is going on down at the Newman Center in Ann Arbor. Go there some Thursday evening." That very same week I went. I was so curious. And I came into that big gym, and I saw something I had never dreamt of seeing in the Catholic Church. But there were all these concentric circles of faculty and students and singing and praising God like I had not heard before. Now, I knew that happened in Baptist churches, but in the Catholic Church? So indeed, I did not know what was going on in the Catholic Church, according to my friend. And the Charismatic Renewal really began right there at Notre Dame, Ann Arbor. So I felt like I was in the cradle, you know, of something very, very special in my life and in the church's life. Then the two of us, her name was Maya Keljan, the two of us began going every Thursday night to the prayer meetings in the basement of the Newman Center. And we would sit there and just most people had their eyes closed, and they were praising God and very, very focused. And we were so amazed. We sat sort of in the back row and were just amazed at what was going on. Well, at one given time, we looked at one another and we said, "I would like to receive the baptism in the Holy Spirit." And she said, "I would too." So we went to what we called the upper room. And my good friend Peter Collins, whom I still am in touch with, in Ann Arbor, was the one who was leading us in prayer and praying over us that night. You know, I was kind of oblivious of everybody else, but I was hoping and praying, you know, that I could receive whatever it was that made those faculty and students so alive in the Spirit. And the only thing I can remember, and I didn't think it was all that great, but later on I guess it was, I began to sing from the Hymns to the Church by Gertrude von Lefort. She is, you know, that wonderful mystic who follows the whole church year and writes these poetic hymns. And I began singing, "Great God of my life, I will praise you on the three shores of your one life," all by myself. And I was kind of timid. I can't believe it that I did it, you know. Well, anyway, so they prayed over us, and then we went home, and I doubted immediately. I thought, oh, nothing happened to me. I don't know what I expected, except that I wanted to model what I saw. And I got to my room that night, and in my doubt, I just took the scriptures, and I knelt down by my bed, and I said, "Lord, prove to me, I'm really hard of hearing or hard of seeing or whatever, prove to me that indeed you have entered into my life in a new way." Well, I opened the scriptures, and I came to a passage in 1 Thessalonians that hit me between the eyes in a wonderful world. And I just kept praying that over and over and over, and feeling gratitude in my heart. And then I thought it was time to finish prayer and get to bed because I had class the next morning. But I couldn't get up. And all I could think of was felt like a hand was just pushing me back down to the floor and saying to me, "Oh, I've got more for you," that kind of thing. So I don't know, whatever happened after that, but it was a conviction that was established in my heart that whether or not I felt it, something happened, and so you believe. And I'm a kind of feeling person, and I like to experience it feeling-wise, and because I didn't, that's why I was being taught something about faith. But the next morning I began to see the fruits of that, and one of the fruits was I would walk out of my apartment and down to class. I felt like I loved the whole world. I mean, it just kind of came alive to me, and wouldn't it be crazy to go up to somebody and say, "Could I give you a hug?" But that's the way I felt, It was marvelous. And another wonderful fruit of that was, since my friends were from another church, Maya got me involved with some of her Protestant friends, and I was being asked to come to speak, to their congregations. And I felt so comfortable. And I did not have that much experience with the Protestant communities. And so, what gratitude I felt for that. And then there was a huge prayer meeting that was an international one, the first one down in Notre Dame, and I went. And I met people from all the other churches, that have become big names in their churches, and in gratitude in the Catholic Church for what they taught us. As I said, I was timid. I hardly ever talked to my classes because I didn't think I could ever compete with, some of those graduate students. But here I was being asked to give talks in churches. I was being asked to help write the Life in the Spirit seminar booklet that has been utilized all over, And then I came home about in 1970 when I finished my graduate studies, and I thought, "Oh Lord, thank you for this degree, but thank you so much more for what I've experienced in the Spirit." It wasn't too long after that I was able to invite back Jim Kavanaugh, who was one of the leaders, to come and speak to a group of us here who were beginning to see, that there was something here that we wanted for our students particularly. We didn't even think about ourselves. It was, this would be good on a campus, So we first met out at Cadman, and I remember we had some prayer meetings that we had invited people to come to, and it caught on like wildfire. People were coming from Marshall, from areas way off St. Joe roads. And so Jim Kavanaugh that night came, and he began to speak in his own peaceful, quiet, beautiful way, about what was ordinary for him and ought to be ordinary for all Christians. And so that very night, he invited any of us who wanted to come to an upper room, which was a bedroom upstairs in our house, and he would pray with us to receive the baptism of the Spirit. Well, I think about 40 people tried to crowd into that little bathroom, or into that little bedroom. And that was the beginning of Glory of God community here. We soon outgrew Cadman, and we went to the music rehearsal room in the BAC, outgrew that. Then we went to the gymnasium in what was then a gym in the HAB building. And we had many Life in the Spirit seminars, and more people came into an understanding and a practice of what this is all about. And I remember every Sunday afternoon, a whole group of us would get together, starting at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and pray so that the prayer meeting would be, open to the Spirit. We grew a lot with one another, and I think in humble gratitude, that's all I can say, we felt so led. It wasn't we who were doing it, and so it was wonderful. glory of God no longer exists. I don't know what happened, but somehow or other we felt that maybe the people who were on fire were already doing a lot of things in their own parishes, and that's what it was all about. It was to set people on fire so they could go back to their own communities. And I miss it very much. So every time I have a chance to go to one, and St. Mary's and St. Cloud does have one, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I can go to one, I just think, oh, I long for that kind of free praise and prayer and sharing of your needs and knowing that people are going to respect whatever you said. It's not going to be passed on. It was just, well, what the Protestants say, beautiful fellowship or communion.